Hello, it's Tom Morgan here with another weekly update and a super busy week for Microsoft and for Teams, especially this week. So let's dig into it. I've got 6 topics, I think, and 5 of those are blog posts that I did in the week. So that gives you a feel for kind of what kind of busy week it's been. All right, so first of all is a blog post I put out about creating Q&A maker bots in Azure. Now, this there's a bit of history which I didn't sort of talk about in the blog post, but it used to be that the way you made bots was in the bot framework, and a really cool feature of the bot framework was when you created a bot, you could create it from a template. And one of those templates was a question and answer template, and you could hook it up to Q&A Maker, and that would give you a bot that would do questions and answers based on Q&A Maker pairs. It's a really nice, quick way of taking your FAQs and turning them into a bot that answered questions with some artificial intelligence. And I've demoed it a number of times. It demos really nicely in talks and sessions because it's quite quick, and that was really good. And then recently the bot framework kind of moved over and is now hosted in Azure. It's an Azure service, and it's called the Web App Bot service in Azure, and that template stuff is still there. But I noticed because I went through the process the other day, and I noticed it's not quite as simple. Like, it's missing a step. So you can create the template when you create the bot in Azure. You can choose the template and you can choose question and answer as your template, but it won't prompt you to hook it up to a Q&A Maker instance. When you try and test out the bot, it will tell you that you haven't told it which Q&A Maker pair to use. And if you go and look in app settings, there are some keys. But there's no real kind of information about what to put in those keys. So I dug around a bit, did some sort of research and investigation, and found where those keys are hosted, and that's all in the blog post. So yeah, you can still do it. It's just you need to kind of know where the keys are and all that sort of stuff. So it's still a super valuable thing, that the templates. I think they're really good because I don't think all this bot stuff should be just limited to people who are really good developers. So I think it should be open to IT pros, people whose development, for whom development is not a thing they do every day. They maybe do it a bit sometimes as part of their job, or maybe they're into doing it at the weekends and evenings and stuff like that. And maybe they're into PowerShell and that sort of stuff, and that's totally a valid programming language. Those people are developers. They just don't think they are. They think that PowerShell is not a development language, but it absolutely is. So anything that we can do, I think, to kind of template this stuff and get rid of all the boring code stuff, and template that as much as possible. I think that's super useful. All right, so that was that. The next thing I want to show you and talk to you about is a blog post put out on the Microsoft Tech Community site on the Teams blog about tunnel relay. So this is really interesting. So the problem with building bots is that because the bot framework is a Microsoft hosted service, it's quite hard to do local debug and test of bots. So especially if you're running code locally, or you're referencing services locally, or anything like that, it's hard to do that through the bot framework, because you don't have, in order to publish to the bot framework, you need a publicly accessible endpoint for your code, and you don't have that if your code is just running locally. So your options really are either to publish remotely, publish up to Azure and get yourself a publicly hosted endpoint, but that's the problems with doing that is that now your code is not local, so your changes, every time you change them, you need to republish them. And also it's much harder to do debug, break and continue, to kind of go through that development lifecycle. So the blog post talks about using a solution called Tunnel Relay. And I'm just going to read out. Tunnel Relay allows you to expose local services to the outside world over HTTPS using Azure Service Bus Relay. Sounds very cool. sounds like a really nice idea, actually. I mean, not just for bot building, but it's a useful kind of tool to have in the bag. Yeah, so there's some good screenshots. There's some good instructions on how to get it all set up. It's open source, the tunnel relay code itself. It's a side project put out by the Microsoft Teams team, and yeah, it looks like it's open source. It looks like it's on GitHub as well. So if you find any problems with it, then feel free to let them know, or just fault the code and fix yourself, which is the kind of cool stuff going on with GitHub. Yeah, so that's all good. Yeah. So what's next? All right, so this happened in the week, and for anyone who keeps up with what's going on in Office 365, you'll know about the Office 365 roadmap. It's a web page that you can go to, and it lists out all the things that Microsoft are working on for Office 365 at the moment, and what their current status is. So whether or not they're planning it, whether it's in development, whether it's rolling out, whether it's launched. You can filter it by different product types. It's a very useful resource. It's I think I've probably talked about it before. It's an example of Microsoft being much more open than they previously have been, and it's a real positive step to help people plan what's coming, and work out what the future of these products looks like, and when this stuff is going to be delivered and when they can expect it. Yeah, there's never you've always been able to go to the website, you've always been able to sort of search and find what you want, but recently they added a download roadmap button, and what the download roadmap button does is lets you download all of the features in the roadmap into Excel. And this is really useful because suddenly now you've got everything in Excel. You can filter it, you can search it, you can sort it, you can very, very quickly kind of get together a very accurate picture of what's happening. You can search for stuff, you can look at it by timeline or by product, and yeah, it's very cool. The other thing you can do once you've downloaded it to Excel is that you can use that Excel file as a data source for Power BI. Microsoft Power BI is, if you don't know what it is, it's a clever visualization reporting tool that lets you take complicated data and create powerful imagery and visualizations to represent that data. And so that's exactly what I did in this blog post. I took the data and I visualized it in Power BI, so you can now see cool pie charts and bar charts representing the Office 365 roadmap. You can quickly filter it. You can see activity over time, and so it's all very interesting, and it's a good example of opening up this information leads to more good stuff. Microsoft making the roadmap available in one go in a big Excel file means that people like me can make Power BI files so that other people can get more value out of the data than they could have before. So you can download the Power BI file from the blog post page. There's full instructions on how to use it and everything like that. So that if that sounds like your sort of thing, then go and grab the Power BI file and use that to visualize your Office 365 roadmap. Okay, next blog post also this week was Microsoft Teams getting the command bar. So this is very cool. It's for keyboard shortcuts. So if you are old enough to remember IRC and all that stuff, it's the same kind of / commands for doing those. It's rolled out to Teams tenants everywhere, and there's a list of the different commands that are supported at the moment. There's quite a lot of them, but they're things for like setting yourself away, setting yourself available, quickly jumping to a channel, jumping to the list of files, recent messages, seeing someone's org chart. There's a bunch of different things, calling someone. So they should really speed up for people who spend their whole day inside Teams. And I'm spending more and more of my day inside Teams actually, but for those people, yeah, it should make a real difference and kind of speed stuff up. Yeah, so full details in there about the blog post, but you should already see it in Teams. It's the big bar across the top. Click it, use the drop down and just start to learn those commands, I think, and you'll start to see productivity gains. Okay, another blog post this week. Another productivity kind of enhancement is the WhoBot. Now, WhoBots we've talked about for a long time. It was announced quite a long time ago, and it's just been released. And it is a bot for Microsoft Teams, and it knows about the people in your organization. So it can answer questions that you give it about, who is so-and-so, who is so-and-so's manager, who does so-and-so work for, who knows about these things, who have I spoken to recently about this thing, who was I in that meeting about. It's very, very clever, and it's a really good example of using artificial intelligence, using machine learning, using data from Microsoft Graph API, combining it all together into a genuinely useful tool, which is this bot that sits inside Teams that you can fire questions at. And it's a really good use case because often you don't know who to ask. So if you want to know who someone's manager is, it can be hard to find that information out of AD. You don't really want to go around asking people you maybe think you should know already, or assume that everyone else thinks you know. So it's nice to be able to just go, who is that person? Find me all the people they work with, find me who their manager is, very quickly. And you're talking to a bot, you're not talking to a real person, no one is going to judge you. So yeah, it's interesting. So it's almost certainly on your tenant already. So there's instructions in the blog post about how to turn it on or how to get access to it, how to use it, and then some things you can try as well, just to get a feel for how it works. Okay, and finally, this week, because there's been a lot going on, the Microsoft Teams App Studio was also launched. And rather than do a big blog post about what it is, I recorded a video instead because I thought it would be easier. So some good tools in there for Teams developers building apps. The biggest of those really is the ability to build up a manifest file using just a UI. So not needing to know the full JSON schema. Sorry about my coughing. I thought I'd got over this cold, but it's the constant talking, I think. I've done a couple of videos already today, and lots of talking and being on lots of calls, and I think it's starting to show. But it is, it's Friday afternoon, so the last act of my week is this weekly update video. So I just got to get through the next few minutes, and then I'll be good. So anyway, Microsoft Teams App Studio. So biggest feature for me, I think, is the ability to build these manifest files with a nice UI. Makes it much easier to use. It's really obvious up front which fields are required and which are optional, and each field has a nice watermark in it that describes the type of information they're looking for. So that's very useful. Also very useful is a card visualizer, so you can build up cards, hero cards and thumbnail cards. You can add in buttons, and again you can make changes in the UI and see how the code looks. And actually you can also send you can see a preview of the button. If you kind of click a button, then the bot will send you what the card looks like in chat. So that's all really nice. And there's a nice control library as well, so you can see all the different UI constructs and all the icons, and use that when planning your next app. So loads of stuff happening this week. It's been a really busy week, and lots for Teams developers as well to dig into there. Plenty of activity. So congratulations to the Microsoft Teams rollout and product team. It's been a very, very kind of busy week. I saw go past on Twitter that apparently there was some stuff kind of blocked, some stuff that they've been waiting to kind of get unblocked in the whole deployment process, and that happened, and that meant all this stuff could come out because it has all kind of come out once this week. So nice busy week, but that's all good fun and gives me plenty to talk about and gives you plenty to play with throughout the weekend. So have a great weekend, and I will speak to you again next week.